Greetings. My name is Sino General. I'm of the Cayuga Nation Wolf Clan. I'm making this audio. I'm making this video. I thought I could, at least come on here and talk about a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on and ideas and thoughts and different things that are being put out into the public that aren't true. Now, of course, they're not true in my eyes, or not true in a lot of people's eyes that I come into contact with and speak with. So let's get into the subject matter right now, and that would be, who are you? Who are you? When they're referring to an Indian, of course, an Indian from North America, or Indians, cowboys and Indians, when they're referring to an Indian, do you really agree that that's what you are, that you're an Indian, because the Europeans or whoever had come over here are labeling you as such? Are you an Indian? Like, really? Are you an Aboriginal? Like, do we even know what Aboriginal means? Like, think about other words like abnormal, absent. The word ab in front of most words tend to depict the fact that it's not, or it's no, or away. So when I take a word like ab-original, it's telling me that not original, away from being original. And someone of the Cayuga Nation or the Gayakono, and I feel that I'm an Onkwehowe, and in our language, Onkwehowe means original beings, or the original ones. Something meaning to be original, right? Onkwehowe. And that's what I think, that's what I believe I am. That's what I've always been taught, is that's what I am. I'm from the Haudenosaunee, we are Onkwehowe. So it kind of confuses me, and it kind of gets me to want to talk. And when I speak to other people and I explain this to them, everyone gets it. Totally, everyone really understands exactly what I'm trying to convey, exactly what I'm trying to say when I talk about the word Aboriginal, or even Indigenous. Like IN, the word IN tends to mean no, not, away. It's a negative. Like indirect, indecisive. And it just sort of frustrates me. The people have to really wake up. You have to come to into a idea that you are not an Indian, you are not an Aboriginal, you're not an Indigenous. So stop running around creating all these communities, that the Aboriginal Center, the Aboriginal this, the Aboriginal that, and then sit around wondering why the government doesn't acknowledge you as Aboriginal people, especially when you stand there holding Canadian identification. You have a Canadian birth certificate, you have a Canadian SIN card, you have a Canadian status card, an Indian status card. And most people don't even realize in the society that we live in, everything is backwards. And if we realize everything is backwards, then we do understand that a status card takes away status. So you are now non-status. You don't have the status of the original. You're not the original people, or the caretakers, or anybody who has any authority on these lands. Especially if you're carrying around a Canadian identification, and then you're going to stand behind something called the Two-Row Wampum Belt, or the Silver Covenant Chain of Peace, and say, well, that's our treaty. Well, how can it be your treaty if you stand there saying you're Canadian, if you have a license plate, if you have, like I said, all these pieces of paper that if I didn't know any better, I would have thought you were Canadian as well. I wouldn't even know that you were Onkwehowe, you're Haudenosaunee, you're Cree, Ojibwe, Lakota, and whatever. And even in those English capacities, Cayuga, Mohawk, Cree, Anishinaabe, or if that might actually Anishinaabe, I'm not sure if that's how they say it in the language, but I'm just saying Ojibwe. Are these words that we're saying or using to describe ourselves in English, are those even who we really are? Stop trying to fall for all these spells and these magic words that the English are using on us. Because really think about it. The word, when you take an English word and you're writing it out, they call that, I'm spelling it. I'm using it to spell. So if I wrote it out wrong, they said you spelled it wrong. So if I'm spelling it wrong, you know, I guess that's I'm not casting my incantation or spell on somebody correctly, because the word grammar in a lot of the etymology of words comes down to words that describe something to do with magic or incantations. So and witches and wizards and all those people are people who cast a spell, and those are the people who are casting magic. So when we speak English to each other, we're casting magic on each other. But not to get away from the point, but the point is these English words we're using to describe ourselves, like Mohawk, Cayuga, Six Nations. That's an English word. Words like Onkwehoe or Gaya Kono or Haudenosaunee, those are our language. That's how we are to describe who we are. And if we were to put it in writing, even though that we're oral now, that we're in a society made up of Americans, Canadians, whatever corporation you decide that you would like to be a citizen of. But I know me myself, I'm not a citizen of any Canadian or American. My English name, Sino General, could possibly be the Canadian that they might be looking for, but that's not who I am. I use that name like I do when I get in a car, like a Chrysler car, a Chrysler 300. But just because I get in the Chrysler 300 and I go from A to B doesn't make me the Chrysler 300. That's not who I am. I'm using it. Just like the English names and birth certificates and SIN identifications and anything else that I can think of, those are like vehicles that I'm using. And sure, I will accept that and I will use that. But do you know who you are? Do you know who you are well enough to know that you're not that English name, that you're not that all capital name? Some people in the sovereign community or the free man movement or whatever, they want to call themselves. I'm not that upper uppercase, lowercase, whatever. For me, that's English, and I don't want to be known really by that name, but I'll use the name to get around and do things because Mr. General may need it. But I know who I am. I know where I'm from. I know my nation. I know what agreements that you know my non-English name has. I know what capacity that non-English name has. But each and every one of us from different nations need to realize that we are of the nation where we come, regardless if you're of the white tribes. What you have to go back to your roots, and you don't need to be native of North America or the area known as Turtle Island. You could be native from from the area known as Africa or China or Scottish. It doesn't have to be just where we are here in the area now commonly known as Canada or Turtle Island. So I just wanted to come on and say that I wanted to voice my opinion on the fact that my people are not Canadians, although we do have a Canadian status that we can use within the Canadian corporation, because everyone on these lands are here because of a contract. And the two-row wampum belts, the one of the main contracts that keeps a lot of the laws and jurisdictions to Canadians and to the Queen and to the Empire and their officers. They don't really affect us. Only if we agree to be their subject. And I know I'm not a subject of her. I know exactly what I am. But the question comes down to you. Do you know exactly who you are? Do you know exactly what you represent? And if so, well, then let it be known. Why we should have our dual citizenship. We can use the dual citizenship. I can have, our nations need to create our own identification, our own way of identifying who our citizens are, identifying whom stands under our great law, our well, not really constitution, but our laws governing the people. Each nation has a law that governs their own people, and that's the law that we should be following. I mean, we also have to have things implemented for people of our nation when they do something that doesn't, fall within our laws. We just can't have a state of just crazy, chaos of people running around doing things that they want because they're not Canadian, and Canadian laws don't affect who we are, don't affect, they can't do nothing to me because I'm not Canadian, and they shouldn't be trying to enforce their Canadian laws on somebody of the nation. But, our nation does need to step up. We do need to start becoming more governing. We want to claim that we're sovereign, but sovereign is someone who knows how to govern themselves. And do we? Do any of our leaders, our elders, anybody know who they are, know what they are, know where they're going? Like, a majority of them don't even really realize half this information that we're talking about. And if they do, if any of our leaders do, and they ain't disclosing or sitting down and addressing any of these issues, then maybe they shouldn't be in the position they are. Maybe they should be taken out of that position, and somebody who can sit down and give the real truth about what's going on, what contracts are in place, and what we should do and what we can do as a people. Maybe those people need to be put in leadership roles. Because at some point, I got to really think that if there are leaders out there who know exactly what's going on, who know exactly how to move about in this Canadian society or American society or civilization, and they know, they have contacts or they have some kind of secret agreements where they can't be telling any of our people any of this stuff, well, then I really gotta start thinking, well, maybe they're the ones who are like, damaging the people. And if they don't know any of this stuff, well, I would really hope that they'd get on board and learn it. I mean, it's quite important information to know who you are. Know what you are, where you're from. Although we do think we know we're from, I'm from the Haudenosaunee. I'm from, the Great Lakes area. Is that good enough? I mean, we're using English, and for those who can't speak your language, I find it to be very important to go back and start learning it, because your culture is in your language. Anyway, hope anybody comments, responds, puts up anything that they believe, any information that they like to express. The English name you could find me on is Sino General, SINOGENERAL. I'm on Facebook, soon to be on Twitter, also known as Chief Rock, CHIEF ROCK. And just wanted to go over a lot of this information. Addressing yourselves as Canadians, Americans. Who are we? Do we know who we are? Do we know where we're from? Do we know what country we live in? Why are our nations issuing their own birth certificates and keeping track of their own child that comes into this nation? They're born from the mothers of the nation. We should have our own identification with the nation and clan and etc. All the information, and that we're separate from the Corporation of Canada. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in and listened to this. I am Sino General, also known as Chief Rock, like I mentioned. Hope all of you guys get you to think. Maybe start establishing some research and looking into a lot of this and finding out who you really are. Start asking some of the real hard questions to some of our elders and some of our leaders. And I'd like to leave it at that. Although I do know some of the people from the Haudenosaunee are issuing and preparing a lot of the our own identification, and we have our own passports, but it's just more of a matter of knowing how to enforce that. Anyway, I'm out. A big thank you to everyone who tuned in, and hope I get to read some lovely comments. And